Good evening. City Council Housing Authority meeting agenda. Pursuant to the July 17, 2021 order from the County of Los Angeles Department of Public Health and to the January 5th, 2022 order from the State of California Department of Public Health, face masks must be worn by all persons regardless of vaccination status while in council chambers. There will be a designated area in the lobby to accommodate members of the public who do not wish to be seated in the council chambers and desire to remain masked and socially distanced regardless of the vaccination status. Temporary accommodation due to COVID. As a standing accommodation to ensure participation of all those with sensitive and or other conditions, the city will offer a nearby alternate location where the individual who desires to participate in the council meeting and would desire to wear masks, maintain 6 feet of social distancing, and ensure those around them are similarly protected, regardless of vaccination status, may watch the meetings. Such individuals will be allowed to remain in that area only if they comply with the requirements. To participate in oral communications, such individuals will be called, can proceed to the public speaking podium and address the city council, and are able to return to the fully masked, socially distanced area with minimal exposure to any unmasked individuals. This is a study session, a combined study session with the Planning Commission. And in attendance tonight, we have Dave Bratt, who's the chair, Tomas Molina, Margie Green, Ted Ross, John Davis. And the presenter will be Ken Felderman. Okay. Ken?
Commissioners and council members.
Ken, can you wait for a moment? Mr. Mayor, can we just read and offer up for oral communication?
Oh, I'm sorry. Members of the audience are invited to address the City Council on any item on this agenda or not on this agenda. Public comments will not be taken during each individual item except for the public hearing item. Consent on the public hearing item will be heard when that item is scheduled for discussion. Under the provisions of the Brown Act, the legislative body is prohibited from engaging in discussion or any other item not appearing on this posted agenda. However, your comments may be referred to a staff member to set discussion at a later date. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. Madam Clerk, do we have any comments?
There have been no speaker cards turned in, Mayor.
Thank you. Then Ken, we'll turn it over to you.
All right, commissioners and councilmen. We are here for the study session because we have had a preliminary application for the lots at 501 and 509 East Baseline Road for a subdivision. The subdivision would require a general plan amendment and zone change. This is just a vicinity map showing where the property is in relation to the other properties. It's about halfway between San Dimas and Walnut, just east of Dixie. It is 2 lots. The lot in front is currently developed with 3 units, and there is a single unit on the larger lot in back. This is a map of the existing general plan. As part of this project, staff is also proposing that we rezone and change the general plan designation for the properties east and west of the property so that we are not spot zoning. It would also be contiguous with the single-family low and areas along Dixie and to the south. Currently, the subject site and the lots to the directly the east and west are zoned single-family very low. They're all run as single lots, but as you can see, they all have lots just along baseline and then additional lots to the rear. Currently, those lots are all being used as a rear yard for the lot in front. This is just a wider view of the general plan showing all the way over to Walnut. We came to council just about a year ago for another project along Cherokee. So we have had another application, or we're waiting for the formal application to rezone the lots along Walnut and just to the east of Walnut as single-family low from the single-family very low designation. Zoning map of the site, you can see all the lots along there are zoned SFA 1600, single-family agriculture, 16,000 square foot minimum lot size. This is just a wider view showing all the way down to Walnut. And again, the lots along Walnut and along, or in between Dixie and Walnut we have a proposal to change those to SF 7500. The proposal at this time is a tentative tract map for 9 single-family lots. The lot sizes would be 7,500 to 16,240 square feet. There are 2 larger lots along the backside of the project. Those have an easement running through, so a good portion of the lot is undevelopable. That easement has to be kept undeveloped. So there are 2 larger lots, including the 16,000 square foot lot along that easement. The proposed density would be 3.5 dwelling units an acre. For the project, it would require a general plan amendment to single-family low and a zone change to single-family 7,500. This is the area staff is proposing for the rezoning and the general plan amendment. There'd be 19 total lots affected, but as I said, a lot of those are on the back, and they are used as the backyard for the property along baseline. This would be the proposed general plan map. It would create single-family low all along baseline to the north and south, and in combination with the other project that's been proposed all the way down along baseline to Walnut. Proposed zoning, the area would be zoned SF 7500 along with the properties to the east, or I'm sorry, the west and the south. At this time, staff recommends that the City Council find that there is merit to allow the submittal of formal applications to request the general plan amendment and zone change and the associated development applications. And I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Questions of Ken?
I have a question. You're going to change the zoning for more than just those 9 lots. How many equestrian lots are we going to lose if we go through with this? You said there's 19 lots. How many of those 19 lots are equestrian lots?
Currently being used as equestrian lots? One that we know of.
No, not presently used.
Those are all equestrian lots.
Have the ability to become an equestrian lot.
Those are all equestrian lots. They are all SFA 1600, which allows for horse
So we'll lose 19 equestrian lots?
Yes and no. There are 19 lots there, but if we go back to the zoning map, you can see that there's the lots along the front, and then there are landlocked lots along the back. So the ones along the back aren't being used as separate parcels. They're being used as the rear yards for these in front. So although it's 19 lots affected, it is effectively only 9 properties.
Okay, thank you.
So just to follow up on that, how are those, so a person who has, let's take that lot that is to the, where Dixie is, which has that little part that's SF 7500 there, and just to the right of that, there's, looks like 2 lots back to back, and I don't know if that's the one with the horse or not, but does the person, I think you said the person owns both of those lots, basically.
In all instances, the person who owns the lot in front owns the one in back. There are a few where the name is different because one may be in like a trust, but it's all in essence the same owner.
Basically, yes. And so does the combination of the 2 lots equal at least 16,000 square feet in order to have a horse?
Of these 2? These are both, of these? Yes.
Of those, I'm just taking that one example that's just to the right.
The rear lots, except for this one, are all 16,000 square feet.
And how about the front lots?
The front lots, these 2, if I remember right, are a little smaller. They'd need the lot in behind them, but these lots were 16,000.
I see. So a person, if they want to have horses, they really have to have the front and the back lot, or I suppose they could just own the back lot and somehow get access through the front lot if the owner allowed, but it's really that back portion that allows them to keep the horses.
Yes.
Okay. I did have a couple other questions just in general, and one is about whether we want, whether we want to address all of the properties that say SFA 16,000 at one time. If we're going to be asked, and it sounds like there's something in the pipeline or about to be requested for SF 7,500 on those lots that are between Walnut and Dixie, then would it make sense to do everything at one time?
We could combine the applications. We came to you, I believe it was last April, that these 3 lots were going to be subdivided along Cherokee, and as part of that, this was all going to be rezoned SF 7500, as well as these on the other side of Walnut, because those are currently non-conforming lots. So we could just run it as a single application and take the whole area.
Okay. The other question is, so that one street is Dixie, that's between Walnut and Dixie, it's Cherokee, is it?
This is Cherokee.
Cherokee.
And this is Dixie.
Now, the houses on the east side of Cherokee, I mean, they're not new, but they were built 15, 20 years ago, whenever that was. They're not as old as some of the other houses. How big are those lots?
Those are 16,000 roughly, but they were developed with the same standards as an SF 7500 lot. So by rezoning it, we wouldn't be taking anything or giving them anything in addition to what they already have.
Okay, 2 more questions. Along Dixie, it looks like some of the lots are kind of small. Do they all exceed 7,500?
I'm not sure, I'd have to check.
Because I'm worried about, well, they're already SF 7,500, but same kind of question for on Baseline. To the east of the orange area, there's some pink right under where it says CH.
Yes.
And so that pink is commercial highway, apparently,
Yes.
according to our zoning and general plan as well.
Yes, that's commercial.
That's commercial there. What are on those lots? Are those houses?
That's the utility. The little one here is like a demonstration garden. And then I believe that's Golden State Water that takes up they take up the majority of these lots.
I see. So even though they're small lots, they're all being used by one entity, Golden
Yes,
State Water.
they are not run as separate lots at this point. It is a single entity on the lots.
All right, that's all the questions I have.
Any other questions? Well, the status of Dixie, it's not a city street, it's a private street, is that correct?
Correct.
Is that going to have any bearing on
No.
this?
No.
Okay. Any further questions of Ken?
I have a question.
I'm sorry, sir.
So Ken, the subject site's 111,000 square feet, is that right?
Yes, roughly.
Okay, so if you go back to the map, that's a lot more than 16,000. So I'm not sure your calculations on what 16,000 and what isn't is exactly right.
Like I
But
said, I'd have to check
that's
to make sure.
111,000 square feet.
Yeah, and the rear lot is extremely large on that case.
Yeah. The whole section would be, what, about 9 acres or 10 acres, something like that?
This entire area?
Yeah. So,
Roughly, that looks to be about correct.
right, so if we were to rezone it to 7,500, and you lose, what, about 20% when you do a development? If we did 7,500 lots, you'd have, what, 35, potential for 35 homes in that?
Potentially, but because unless you had somebody develop them all at once, you're going to
Right.
lose a
Yeah,
lot
it's
of
part
that
of
due to
the pro-
setbacks and street.
Yeah, it's part of the problem with just doing little infield like that, because it's not very efficient.
And I would like to mention that the applicant did make several efforts to see if this gentleman would be interested in being part of the project, and he declined. Because staff's preference was to develop that as a square. That would be the most efficient design. But he was not interested in being part of this.
Okay. And I think the property John was just talking about, the commercial zone, the little thing that kind of,
Right there.
yeah, that's undeveloped at the moment, other than you said a garden?
It
of
was
some
a
kind?
demonstration garden.
Demonstration garden. The other lots are all parking, if I
Yes,
remember
yeah.
right. It would seem, do they need that for some particular reason, the Golden State Water, other than it's a demonstration garden?
They have a building on this parcel.
No, I know that, but I mean, that little lot that's right there, seems to me it would make sense to rezone that as well if we were going to do the rezoning. If it's just a demonstration garden, it's not needed for parking.
It would be something staff could consider because it would not be, it wouldn't be making it non-conforming because there are no structures
Yeah, it wouldn't
on the
be
property.
non-conforming, and if they wanted to sell it to a developer, it would make more sense if you could connect that street, the Cheyenne Drive, and it kind of went around if you were doing something over there.
That particular parcel right now, I don't know what they're doing on it, but Golden State Water has some partitions up, and it looks like they're drilling. So I don't know what exactly is going on there, but it's, when I walk by there in the mornings, there's some sort of work going on there.
Okay, that's fine, and I actually agree with whoever commented that we ought to look at the whole area if we're going to look at it at the one.
Just a couple questions. According to the lot map, the street is going to be a private street, is that correct?
That's something we're still working on with them. They gave us preliminary design before we talked it over staff, so it was planning, engineering, public works, and building. We do have comments for them, but we wanted to make sure that this would be something that Commission and Council would even consider before we worked with them further on the project. So whether or not that will be a private street, I don't know at this time.
If we required it to be a public street, would that affect the project as far as
No.
lots?
They would still have to conform even with the private street to the minimum street guidelines that Public Works has. So public or private, it would be the same for the development.
And one final question, Lot 7. It's got that huge easement running basically right through the middle of it. How would that be developed with a house?
You would have to put a house in that back kind of northeast corner somehow. That is one of the things we're still working with them on, if there's some changes we can make to make the lot a little more developable. Because Lot 8 is oversized by a little lot. This is not a final map by any means. We are still working with them. This is just a preliminary submittal to give you an idea of what they are considering.
Okay, and that's all fine and good, but I think, at least to my way of thinking, those are two questions I think that need to be answered before I could give my
There's still
approval to the project.
There's still an envelope there, a building envelope of 30 by 50 feet on the north side of that easement. So there is a way to put a house. They can put a driveway over the easement, that's fine. They just can't have a structure. So there is still enough of an envelope to put a house in there.
Okay.
Did you say what the easement was for, Ken? I don't remember hearing.
I believe it was either a sewer or flood.
Oh, what?
Sewer or flood.
Didn't hear that.
Sewer or
Oh,
flood?
sewer, okay.
Something to do with water.
Water underneath, yeah, gotcha. Either going in or going out.
Just wanted to provide a couple clarifications. So the private street was a concern from staff, Public Works, but if they do require it to be a public, if we do require a public, that's going to potentially alter, because it's got to be wider. The right-of-way's got to be a little bit wider.
That was my point.
Correct.
Does that make the project not workable?
No, they can still, we've mapped it out. They may lose a lot in the
They
long
may
run.
lose a lot or so,
Yeah.
but it wouldn't make the project infeasible.
We just haven't had real good success with private drives.
Correct, and that's our concern because of, especially with Dixie adjacent, it's not very maintained very good, and that's a private drive, so that was kind of our concern as well. To clarify on Councilmember Ebner's question, I don't believe we can combine the two projects because they're two separate applications, two separate property owner or representatives for these properties, and then if we do the zone change and general plan amendment at the same time, the environmental will have to be for both projects, and someone's going to have to pay for that. So I don't know if, unless they work together or someone buys it, vice versa, one of the other properties, I don't believe it could be combined.
I understand what you're saying, Henry. So on this property here, the owner of these two lots is willing to pay for environmental on the zone, changing all the stuff like that, east of Dixie, it sounds like. So he or she is willing to pay for everything on that
My
part.
understanding.
What was the cost would be?
Yeah.
The cost wouldn't change between just doing his 2 lots or doing the whole area for him. It would be the same cost through the city. So he has asked for the zone change, he has asked for the general plan amendment. It would be, as staff, we would recommend doing the entire area so we don't have spot zoning and just a single SF 7500 island in the middle of the agricultural lots.
I couldn't agree more with that. I'm just thinking that for cohesive planning, and so now we're not talking about who's paying for what or anything like that, for the actual cohesive planning of the area, if our intent is to make some changes, why leave for this particular one? I know something's coming down the line, but let's say we can't count on that and we don't know. If we didn't address the part on the west there, around Cherokee, then we've got that island of SF 16,000 still around. What I'm saying is that it seems common sense that we would do the whole thing at one time.
We can explore that.
Regardless of who's paying for it, I'm just saying, it seems like the better planning practice would be to do that.
So if for whatever reason one or the other doesn't go through, when we go through at some point, hopefully in the next 5 years or so, or 10 years, a comprehensive general plan update is kind of what we'd be looking at. And so for instances like this, we'd be looking at it comprehensively, and because the city's already doing it with full EIR and we'll be looking at the city as a whole, we can change that at that point.
You know that those lots along Cherokee on the east side of that street, the developer came in, it was SF 16,000, and that developer developed under the standard that was in place. That person did not need a zone change or general plan amendment. That's just, I'm just throwing that out there as another option for this person that maybe they can develop under the current zoning.
So you're talking about the western portion?
Well, no, the one that's before us tonight. I know what the developer wants to do. I'm just saying, what's the best thing for the city? That's all.
One more question. Are there plans to take this before the Equestrian Commission?
Not at this time.
Not at this time. Was there kind of any concern with staff that we're losing all our equestrian lots in the city? That's supposed to be, at least it used to be, an equestrian city, and we have our own equestrian property?
There was, but when we look at the overhead and of the lots, only one of those is being used for equestrian at this time. Most of those are being used as storage and back. You can see this is the overhead. This is just from Google, or this is from GovClarity. Like most of these, this rear portion is just not being utilized.
But
So
it could be utilized, though.
It could be. We are losing possible equestrian lots, but staff at this time was looking at the current use, and the only lot that is being used as equestrian is right here.
Yeah, I have to agree with Dennis that every time we do this, I know John mentioned looking at those other lots to the west, but every time we do this, we lose opportunity for people who are interested in the equine world. And, I have concerns that align with Mr. Bratz as it relates to the easement. And I think if you make that a public road and you go and you resize all that, and then he reconfigures his lots, I think you're going to end up smushing it back into lot 6 and 7. Well, probably lot 6 will shrink a little bit, I imagine, depending on how you space this out. And so you end up with 2 smaller lots. I don't think lot 7 really will be impacted much. Potentially, I guess lot 8 might push into lot 7 maybe. But either way, I just think every time we take SF 16,000 away, you're losing good property, for people potentially to use. So I understand adding inventory to the market as well, and I understand people's ability to be able to fund those projects, but I'm just not for eliminating that zoning at this point, barring an application, to be considered.
Any other commissioner have some comments? Seeing none, back to the council. Any additional comments?
I do have some comments as opposed to questions. I agree with Ryan and Dennis about the equestrian. So part of having an equestrian community or supporting the equestrian community is having the opportunity to have horses. So we have a lot of lots in the city that are big enough for horses, and there aren't horses. A while back, we made a decision to require like site plans so that you would be able to tell where is the equestrian part on the lot, because just having 16,000 square foot doesn't mean you are able to have the corrals and everything separated enough from other houses and other structures and whatever. So I am concerned about that. If we are going to move forward, the Equestrian Commission should be involved. We had that policy before. I thought we still had that policy, so I assume it would go before the Equestrian Commission before we, as part of the process. The other two things that if we go forward, what I would like to know is exactly how much this is affecting our arena numbers, and that's one thing, and then sort of related is affordability. Is building these units going to make the area more or less affordable? I don't know if you can quantify that, but it's something to be concerned about, because if we're upzoning and making it possible to have more houses, and I'm sure these will be pretty expensive houses, how does that affect the surrounding affordability? And I'm not saying it's low income affordability, but it's affordable for some income level, and I'm concerned, or I want some kind of analysis on, does that make it less affordable and everything higher priced in the area? Anyway, that's part of the process.
So for just a little bit of history, I was informed that the Brandywine development, we did take that to Equestrian Commission just for they can provide input. They don't have any discretion or any type of recommendation, but we brought it to them for their information and for their input. So we can do that again. The other item is that the council, with regards to the equestrian requirements, as it related to, I've been told the Cherokee, the existing Cherokee on the east side, council adopted a policy that the minimum lot size for equestrian is 20,000 square feet. So these would be a little bit harder to develop as equestrian, plus they have to be 150 feet wide. So that just provides a little more uncertainty if these can be utilized as equestrian.
So we zone east and west 20,000, that's what you're saying?
For equestrian uses, it's 20,000, the lot size.
How would these new houses there affect the person who does have a horse? I think you said it was right adjoining the back of these properties.
So for any equestrian existing uses, there would have to be a separation requirement. I believe it's about a 50 foot? 80 foot. Yeah. So there has to be a separation from the equestrian facility, so like a equestrian barn or whatever, to a habitable structure.
I wouldn't want to make the property owner who has horses have to move.
No, they wouldn't. We would have to make that, or the new development, if it came through, would have to have that separation as part of their.
One thing that often happens is, the horses are there first, and the property owner who likes the horses. Then in come some people who don't have horses, that don't necessarily care one way or the other. And then the smell, the flies, whatever, you start getting complaints from the people who came in there second, and all of a sudden there's pressure to just, get rid of the horses.
If you look at the preliminary just kind of plot plan, those lots that they're proposing on the west side of the street are basically 150 feet long. So they've got a building envelope in front that is still fairly large while being able to maintain that 80 feet from the corrals. So we would mandate that the houses would have to be 80 feet, probably from the existing property lines even.
So what's that mean in terms of opportunity for ADU development?
It is our understanding, and Jeff might be able to clarify this, but because of health code, we can say that there is no ADU allowed there because the horses are already in place.
I guess the one concern that I have along the same lines as John isn't necessarily that a existing horse owner would be, not permitted to have a horse there anymore. I don't think we would be willing to do that. But I think looking at it from a potential owner's view where, however many years ago they bought this house as an equestrian property, and that, it is a attractive thing to sell it potentially as an equestrian property. So I think my concern would not necessarily be whether they're going to be permitted or not to continue the use as an equestrian property, but what happens when they go to sell the property. Is that going to be a permitted use in the future?
One second, just a question.
That's a $100 question, Eric. We got a meeting of the minds going on.
We just had we have some other policies. We just wanted to clarify that those wouldn't come into play. So it would be a non-conforming use, but you'd be able to continue the non-conforming use until the horses were discontinued from the property. So if somebody with horses sold to somebody with horses, that would not be an issue.
It's a 12-month period, so if there's no horses for 12 months, then the new owner could not have a horse if they let that use go.
Can I still speak? Pardon me? Yeah, thanks. I would think, Eric, that rezoning from down to 7,500 would increase the property value pretty substantially if you were going to develop it, right?
It could, because all of a sudden, if you've got one of these lots, it's not just a single-family lot anymore. You have the potential to sell
you would have to accumulate a couple of lots to be able to do it, but when you accumulated the lots, the value of the property would be substantially more than at 16.
We would imagine so, because you'd have the ability to sell multiple units on one lot. Well,
they're going to be
one current lot.
They're going to be $1 million homes because that's all anybody has anymore. So I think it would actually increase the value, I guess is what I would say. I don't know, but it seems like it to me. I think we're going to get a lot of public opinion if we take this forward. So I think the Equestrian Commission and a lot of the neighbors are going to be here talking about it. So it's not going to be an easy thing to ignore what's going on. So I don't know whether, how do we move forward?
Well, I'm not 100% sure, but it would have been nice to at least tune in the Equestrian Commission, get their input on this before we come to a vote. We've always kind of ignored them.
Well, any vote tonight is not for approval.
Right, I understand.
It's just so we can move forward.
But
So
it would be nice to have their input. They have the pulse of the equestrian world. We just know the horse is over here, and we didn't decide on that. In fact, if you remember when we did the Brandywine project, that was huge debates on where those properties were that had to have the easement for the horses. And I think that we got a couple of different conversations going in a way. There was a time when we only would look at 7,500s, and then when they started talking about smaller or bigger units over at Brandywine, that discussion got out of whack. I agree with John that 7,500 seems to be a more palatable thing, but I also believe, like John and Dennis, and even what's his name over there? Ryan, we keep trying to be what we used to be. And I'm just not sure that we're selling the product to our community without sending them feeling like they've been shortchanged, the horses, There's all kinds of comments, and
I think Mr. Davis brings up a really good point regarding property values, and those lots absolutely are going to be 900,000 plus. I mean, existing homes built much earlier are going for more. And I think if you look at the median home price, if we really start looking at it in terms of the macro scale in the community, let's say we add these 9 homes to this area, each one of these homes, potentially $1 million or more for them in terms of sale price. All of it's relative to the market, but we're adding more inventory. I almost wonder if by keeping it at that existing zoning or use, I mean, not that we're saying it holds back property value, but that use is a use that is, I think, intrinsically valuable to people in a subset in the community, and provides that opportunity, and it won't drive up housing prices in the community, and still affords for the opportunity to be used. To that extent, my motion I would propose then is to refer this matter to the Equestrian Commission for them to be able to weigh in and analyze this, and then bring it back to a joint meeting between planning and the city council for deliberation and discussion, because I do think there has to be some in-depth analysis by the Equestrian Commissioners, and I don't mean it as a matter of appeasement or formality. I literally think the Equestrian Commission has to engage in this, because I think this is really a decision point, I think, for the community. Is, you look at several lots, SF 16,000, and those are some of the last big lots. I mean, Brandywine, we saw that took out that equestrian center. There's a trail system that's not too far from this area here, and I see people ride it, and it's close to Horse Thief Canyon Park. So I would hate personally to lose these lots, to be honest. That would be I would make that motion if anyone was interested.
I'd second that motion.
Further comments?
Just a comment, and I'll support the motion. What we could do also is, as the process goes along, this has been done in the past, where we get the developer to come and sit down with us in a study session. So we hash out these ideas, and so they might hear me, for example, in that study session say, I don't like gated communities. So, and that might weigh in. They might hear staff a little more clearly with us supporting you, that little spot for that house on lot 7, I think you said it's kind of near the back, overlooking the businesses on right over the wall, basically. And so all these things, it may add up to them wanting to modify a little bit their request before they plunge into the whole application and pay all those fees and get staff all working on it. Sit down and have a conversation so we can see, well, what is going to be going on? And now that it's on our radar, because, honestly, this just came up and here it is in the agenda, we get to walk by it a little bit, like Ryan was saying, and just see how that is. That street is, the north side of Baseline, is sort of a special kind of a feeling, or a different kind of feeling, let's call it that, it's kind of valuable. So, but I would support the motion as Ryan posed it. I just think there's some other baby steps in between that we could do to have a discussion with the developer and have council and planning commission in on the discussion, and might come up with a better product.
Just as a matter of just discussion here, there is no real developer working on this project. It is the property owner who has hired an architect. There's no development firm behind them yet. It is just the 2 people working on this.
I see. So they just want to divide their property into lots like this.
Well, that's interesting. I was going to say to John's comment, I agree, but I caution us from the last time we did this exercise, we voted on a bloody project, it felt like, rather than looking at the policy implication in front of us. And so I'm all good with doing that meeting, as long as we keep it to the policy, not the project per se, if you will, as it relates to that. And to this point you raise, I wonder if that gentleman should meet with the Equestrian Commission and attend that meeting when they talk about this, because I think, if it is in fact the owner working with an architect and looking at opportunity, then maybe hearing from the residents that really value the land use and understanding that if it's not strictly monetarily driven, might incentivize him or motivate him to maybe consider a different disposition for his property, perhaps. Yeah, I don't know.
You know, we talked about this back when the Brandywine, the size of the lots and how they came before us. When they left here, for them sit-down meeting with us, they in their minds already knew, they thought they had a project. Right. And they started moving forward with that. We've had several of those over the years. I understand and I respect the equestrian position that we have. I would like to hear from them, but I also think that I don't think you can go anywhere in this city, people who are thinking about the city itself, and recognize that they don't feel that we have housing stock that they can afford. Parents raise their kids here at San Dimas High School, they go away, they go move back, but they never can move back because they can't afford a house here. So we have really no way of linear bringing people back. So I think that one of the things is affordable. When I say affordable, you and everybody in this room knows you can't find a house in this city, you know, for less than $900,000, $1 million. Brandywine, if you remember, Brandywine said, all going to go for less than $1 million. Go over there and try to buy one today. You cannot buy it for less than $1 million. So I just do think that that's one of the things I would like to have further discussion on, those ideas. So I think we have the right idea as far as trying to bring things together, but we also have some competing interests that I think we need to set out, and I'd like to hear from the question. So I will support Ryan's motion.
Mayor, before we call the question, any of the planning commissioners have any input or thoughts on that motion before we do it?
Right, we don't get to vote, do we?
You can have mine.
Huh? Yeah, we can talk, but we can't vote. You know, I was just thinking, it would if 20,000 square feet is the size for horses, then they could probably, with 111,000 square feet, and then the losing for the road that you'd have to put in, you could probably get 4 lots out of that, right?
It's close.
At 4 lots instead of...
It might only be 3, but it's somewhere there.
Yeah, it'd be 3 or 4 lots, yeah. No, I actually agree with the whole discussion. You want to solve the arena problems and get affordable housing, but you also don't want to lose the character of the city. So I think getting more public input, or at least Equestrian Commission input, before we say you have a chance, because I think that's what we're trying to say here. Before you spend all your money, do you actually have a chance to get approval? And so I would agree with that 100%.
Yeah, it just, we've had too many times that people have come in, sat down with us, when they walk out that door, they say, well, we got it, and they start working in that direction, right. And pretty soon they've got so much money wrapped up into it, and then it gets finally to this table, and we say no. And I think everyone here knows what projects we're talking about.
Yeah.
So we're just call the question, unless, Henry, you got something to say, you want to take over?
Yeah, just a couple of items. With the initiation, when we do come back, council can, if they initiate it, doesn't mean that the decision has been made. So like those other previous ones, they have to understand that the general plan amendment and the zone change is a legislative act, and it is not a, if you don't want to, when it comes down to coming back to the city council for that decision, if for whatever reason you're not comfortable with that general plan zone change, you do not have to approve it. The other item on the affordability, so the one thing that we are going to be analyzing with the housing element update is the Inclusionary Ordinance. So that's really the only way from a community-wide standpoint of providing some type of affordability component for new developments that are proposed. For this particular one, I can talk to Jeff and see if the owner is willing, we can possibly do a development agreement at 1 or 2 of the units would be affordable at some type of category that the council would wish, at the moderate income or lower income, and see if they're if that's something that the council wishes, then that could be part of the entitlement package, and we'll be guaranteeing 1 to 2 units would be affordable, or more affordable at that point. So just other thoughts.
I would imagine if those were equestrian lots or non-equestrian lots, they're not going to be affordable, maybe except for the one.
I haven't checked the pricing, but I'm pretty sure these older homes are probably close to $1 million too.
Right.
You know, what's interesting is if you watch the inventory that goes up, at least in the Zillow and Redfin world, that the equestrian lots seem to command more money. And not that that solves the problem, but I think they're commanding more money just because of sheer lot size, not necessarily because of use. But I've wondered if someone came into the city and developed or took a chance on some property to develop it for equestrian use, if it in fact would sell less or more than what you think would go into it. Because now, especially this morning, I was talking to an equestrian commissioner, and they're talking about there's nowhere to put your horses, and we have other things going on about that. And so people are looking for these homes, and they don't want to move to Norco or Fontana, where they know they can get a good lot size for their horse. So I am kind of curious that if it shook out that you develop 2 or 3 lots on there, I almost wonder if what the yield would be on that for the person that did it. It'd be interesting.
Yeah, there's definitely an intrinsic value to equestrian property, whether people use it for equestrian property or not. Just having the lot size is very valuable to some people. It may not work out to be monetarily valuable, but
I think you'd have to almost, put something in there that you can't convert the property as some do, because some develop, they get the huge lot size, and then they convert it, sometime later. So anyway, I digress.
Okay. It's, when we keep going back to the Brandywine project, there was some type of an assessment by the staff at that period in time of how many of those properties over there to the west of the Brandywine project were actually horse property and was being utilized by horses. And I went down and talked to several people, and they said, hey, I want my motor home, I want my deal. My family left me this property. It's horse property. I don't want to change it, but I'm never going to have a horse. Okay, but that was my father and my mother and stuff like that. So there is horse property out here, except for people like a lot of us have our own thoughts about how we want to utilize our property. So I'll call for a vote. All in favor of sending it out back to the Equestrian Commission and for further conversation, and to the planning department to handle it in the way they see fit? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none? Okay, passes 5-0. Okay. Chris?
There's one more oral communication at the end, and then the meeting adjourned.
Okay, any further? Okay. Let's see here. Okay, members of the audience, speakers are limited to 3 minutes, or as they may be determined by the chair. When we adjourn this meeting, we will come back at 7 o'clock for our normal meeting and start over. Okay, anyone wishing to speak? Madam Secretary, Madam Clerk.
No speaker cards turned in.
Thank you very much. I'll entertain a motion. Second, yeah, hold on.